Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Hey everyone, it's the Women's Hops and Talks podcast where we elevate the voice of women in basketball. We've got a great episode for you today, including a really fun interview, which we're going to get to in a minute. But first, I want to say hi to Kendyl. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Now you're on break, is that right?
I am, yeah.
What does one do on break these days? It's probably much more constructive than what I did when I was on break in college.
Yeah. Well, for me, because I'm so far away from home, I am staying on campus. Luckily, I do have a lot of friends kind of in the area that are staying. So I've just been spending a lot of time with friends, getting caught up on work, just kind of taking a week off, honestly, from my crazy semester. So watching a lot of basketball, actually getting to watch full games that are not Blazer games. So that's exciting.
So you brought up the Thanksgiving holiday. Let's take a minute and think about things that we are thankful for with regards to basketball. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
I didn't think about it enough.
Do you want me to start? I got one.
Yeah, sure. You go first.
So I'm located in Portland, and the PK80 is coming to town this weekend. So I'm really excited about that. This is the first time they've ever done the Phil Knight tournament, and I don't know if they'll ever do it again. It's a tournament that Nike is putting on to celebrate Phil Knight's 80th birthday. And so there's 16 elite college teams coming to town. So I am in advance thankful for it because I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be exciting to have everybody in town. And I think it's one more thing that the city of Portland and the local sports authority can say that they've done with regards to holding a big basketball event, because I just really someday want to have an all-star game in Portland. And I think that if they pull this off and do a really great job of it, it'll be one more thing that they can point to about why Portland deserves to have an all-star game. So I'm in advance thankful for how amazing this tournament is going to be over the next 4 days.
Yeah, I'm super jealous that I am not there for that. I have so many friends here that are talking about it. And then I'm like, I could be home for it, but I'm not, unfortunately. So I'm actually thankful for, this is kind of a more in the future thing, but for next semester, I'm studying in LA. And like you said, with the All-Star game, wanting to come to Portland, I'll actually be in LA while the All-Star game is there. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm super excited for that. Hopefully I can whittle my way in there somehow, even if it's just to the Friday night practices or whatever it may be. Hopefully I can get in there and see some of that. So that's something I'm kind of thankful for in the future that's coming up, of an opportunity where I'll actually be in the area of the All-Star game.
Wow, that is super exciting.
Hopefully we'll have some Blazers in that game too. So
we'll keep our fingers crossed. We got to get our fingers all warmed up for all of the Twitter voting that we're going to be doing.
Oh, yeah.
For what NBA vote Damian Lillard or whatever we're going to have to do this year.
Oh, yeah. Lots of votes for him. I voted so many times last year. Didn't quite make the cut, but.
Man, I'm really interested in what the All-Star landscape is going to look like this year. I mean, there's suddenly so many people coming out of the East, which is really exciting. I mean, everybody kind of had their eye on Embiid, had their eye on Giannis, but like the way that they've just come out the gate has been really exciting. And I think both Eastern and Western conferences are going to have really interesting all-star races this year.
Yeah, I think that's really positive because so many people were worried about it this year. Like, oh, the West is going to be super stacked and then the East is just going to be terrible. And it's looking like now it's like that's not necessarily going to be the case. But because of the way they are actually doing the All-Star game this year, because they're changing it, or they changed the way they're doing it this year. So now they have the two captains are pitching their teams. So I think that's going to cause so much drama. And I'm kind of excited for it. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to bring out some interesting conversations around that time.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It's probably the two captains are almost like, I mean, there's almost no chance that it's not going to be LeBron and Kevin Durant. So putting them in there and kind of being like, okay, who are they going to choose now? And that's going to be interesting to watch. And are they going to go with their teammates or are they going to actually go with who the best player is? So I think that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how they do it. I mean, I don't know if they've come out about with like when they're going to do it or how they're going to do it. But they're going to trickle that news out and it's going to like last so long. It'd be so fun. If I could be thankful for one more thing, it would be that the way that even though really the last couple of years, there's sort of been like a presumptive champion. I mean, anything can happen, but really people have been sort of overwhelmed by all the talent on the team from the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. So there's been sort of like everyone's just going to, they're just going to march to the finals or whatever. But despite all that, there are still so many interesting things that happen in the NBA every single day. There's like just not even any downtime virtually anymore. There's so many interesting things. And so that would be another thing that I would say that I'm thankful for.
Yeah, it's definitely not a boring league. You can say that.
Well, speaking of entertainment, let's move on and talk about our guest.
Yeah, so our guest today is the Associated Press reporter Anne Peterson. So Anne first started covering sports in Boston in 1989 and has since covered 4 Olympic Games, a FIFA Women's World Cup, 2 NCAA college football championships, numerous NCAA basketball tournaments, and countless other events in every major sport pretty much. So she has done a lot around the sports media industry.
Yeah, and she has some amazing stories to tell. She was covered the Blazers during the Jailblazers era, and she still covers them to this day. So let's go ahead and roll the interview, and I hope everybody enjoys it. Welcome to the show, Anne. We are so happy to have you here today. You're the second guest on the Women's Hops and Talk podcast. The first print reporter that we've got. The last guest was Jamie Hudson, who does digital reporting. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about your life as a reporter covering sports for the Associated Press. Can't wait to hear the stories that you've got to tell us today. Kendyl, do you want to go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of get into reporting for different sports, but how did you first get into wanting to cover the NBA specifically?
Well, so I kind of fell into it. It was just part of the job. So I started my career in Los Angeles and worked there for a couple of years. And then I moved to Boston with the AP, and I worked there for a couple of years. And that's where I first started covering sports. And then I transferred to San Francisco, and that's where I spent the bulk of my career. And it was interesting during those days, right? I covered being an Associated Press reporter, we kind of cover everything, right? So even here in Oregon, I'm not just an NBA writer. I also cover the Ducks. I also cover the Beavers. I also cover the Timbers. I go up and I relieve our Seattle writer on Seahawks games occasionally. So I do all different kinds of sports. I don't think there's a sport that I haven't covered. But when I was in San Francisco, my main beat, and whenever you're a sports writer, your main beat is the NFL, right? So my team, we had a couple of sports writers in San Francisco, so my team was the Raiders. And I also covered the San Francisco Giants.
What was the era that you were down there, Anne?
So I was there from 1990 to 2002. So the Raiders were awful. They were really bad. There was one season where I think they only won one game. So they were really awful. I got to cover I got to cover Barry Bonds' career extensively until I missed when he set the all-time home run record, but I covered the season that he set the single season home run record. So it was right in between those 2 years is when I came up to Portland. But so when I was in the Bay Area, right, the Warriors were just awful. I mean, they weren't interesting. There wasn't a lot of excitement about them like there is now. I mean, obviously they've got personality plus, they've got a great quote, they've got several championships, right? But back then they were really, really bad. And the only time that I really covered